10 years had passed since the crash. Taman was now 15 years old, and no longer the small, frightened child who had been rescued from the burning wreckage. He stood on a crystal platform high inside Mount Korath, practicing the ancient dragon art of biotech fusion. Around him, the dragon sanctuary glowed with living light. The walls were not carved stone but grown crystal that pulsed with soft colors. Dragon technology was not made of metal and circuits like human machines. Instead, it was alive, breathing, changing as needed. "Focus your mind, young one," said Korvac the Wise. The old dragon was Taman's teacher and had been like a father to him for the past decade. Korvac's scales were deep blue with silver edges that caught the crystal light. Feel the life energy in the biocomputer. Do not force it. Guide it gently. Taman closed his eyes and reached out with both hands toward the strange living machine in front of him. It looked like a tree made of crystal and flesh, with glowing veins running through transparent branches. This was how dragons stored and shared knowledge. Every important memory and discovery of their race was kept in these biocomputers. As Taman touched the surface, he felt something incredible happen. The machine responded to him in a way it had never responded to any dragon. Usually these biocomputers only shared simple information, but with Taman they seemed to open completely. Images flooded his mind. He saw the history of the dragons stretching back thousands of years. He watched their great cities grow from living crystal. He felt their joy when they learned to speak with other species across the galaxy, and he felt their deep sadness when humans arrived and began destroying their sacred places. But there was something else. Something the biocomputer had never shared with anyone before. Deep in the oldest memories, Taman saw visions of other worlds where different species learned to work together instead of fighting. He saw humans and dragons and strange alien races building wonders that neither could create alone. "Korvac," Taman whispered, his eyes still closed. "I can see things, old things, and new things that might happen." Korvac moved closer, his great head tilting with curiosity. In all his centuries of life, he had never seen a biocomputer react this way to anyone. "What do you see, child?" "I see humans and dragons working together, building ships that live and breathe, healing planets that were damaged by war, making music that both species can understand." Taman opened his eyes and looked at his dragon teacher. "But I also see darkness coming, ships full of human soldiers. They want to kill every dragon on this world." Before Korvac could respond, a younger voice called out from across the crystal chamber. "Taman, are you having the dreams again?" Nyx glided down from an upper platform. She was a young dragon, only 30 years old, which was very young for her kind. Her scales were bright silver, and she was Taman's closest friend. They had grown up together in the sanctuary, and she was the only dragon who truly understood what it was like to be different. "They are not dreams anymore," Taman said. "The biocomputer showed me real memories, and warnings about the future." Nyx landed gracefully beside them. "Father says human ships have been seen near the outer crystal formations. More than usual. They are not just mining scouts anymore." Korvac's expression grew serious. Vrathus had told the Sanctuary Council about the increase in human military activity. The old dragon matriarch was worried that the humans were planning something big. "Come," Korvac said. "We must speak with Vrathus. If the biocomputers are showing you visions of war, she needs to know." They moved through the living tunnels of Mount Korath, toward the great chamber where Vrathus spent most of her time. Along the way, Taman noticed other dragons watching him with curious eyes. He had lived among them for 10 years, but he still felt different. He was the only human in their world, and sometimes that made him lonely. But he had learned to speak their language perfectly. Not just the simple words dragons used for everyday things, but the deep philosophical concepts that took most dragons decades to understand. He could read their history crystals and understand their art. In many ways, he was more dragon than human now. They found Vrathus in her meditation chamber, surrounded by floating crystals that recorded the memories of her long life. The ancient dragon looked up as they approached. "Young Taman," she said in the formal dragon greeting. "Korvac tells me you have touched the deep biocomputers. This is unusual. Even elder dragons must prepare for years before they can safely interface with our oldest knowledge systems." "Great Mother," Taman replied, using the respectful title dragons gave to their eldest. "The machines spoke to me about things that are coming. Human soldiers with new weapons. They want to harvest dragon bioneural tissue for their own computers." Vrathus was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the memory crystals pulsed with soft light, as they recorded this conversation for future generations. "We have sensed the growing human presence," she finally said, "but we hoped they would leave us in peace if we stayed hidden. Perhaps we were wrong. There is something else," Taman continued. "The visions showed me that I might be able to help. My human understanding combined with dragon knowledge could create new technologies, things that could protect everyone. Or," Nick said quietly, "you could go to the humans and try to talk to them. Make them understand that we are not monsters." Korvac shook his great head. "Too dangerous. Humans kill first and ask questions later. They would never listen to a boy, no matter how wise." But Vrathis was thinking deeply. She had lived through many wars and seen much suffering. Maybe it was time to try something new. "The biocomputers chose to show you these visions for a reason," she said to Taimin. "Perhaps your unique nature is exactly what our two species need. But the path ahead will be full of danger. Are you willing to risk your life to save both humans and dragons?" Taimin looked around at the dragons who had become his family. He thought about his birth parents and their dream of peace between species. He felt the weight of the choice before him. "Yes," he said simply, "I am ready to try." Outside Mount Korath, human scout ships moved through the asteroid fields, preparing for something the dragons could not yet imagine. But inside the sanctuary, a plan was beginning to form that might change the fate of both species forever. The boy raised by dragons was about to discover just how powerful the bond between two worlds could be. The transport ship moved through space like a wounded bird. Inside the small cargo vessel, 5-year-old Taman pressed his face against the cold window and watched the stars spin past. His mother, Heejin, sat beside him, her fingers dancing across a datapad filled with strange symbols and dragon language notes. "Are we really going to see the dragons today, Mama?" Taman asked. His voice was small and excited. Heejin smiled and ruffled his black hair. "Yes, little one. Papa and I have been working very hard to understand them. They are not monsters like everyone says. They are very smart beings who have lived on this planet for thousands of years." From the pilot seat, Jinwoo called back to them. "The mining station says the weather is getting bad near Mount Korath. We might have to land early and wait it out." Heejin frowned as she looked at her research. For 3 years, she had been studying the dragon communication patterns. Every night she worked on translating their complex language. Most humans thought dragons were just big, dangerous animals that needed to be killed, so the mining companies could take the crystal deposits from their mountain homes. But Hyejin knew better. Her research showed that dragons had technology and culture that was far beyond what humans understood. "The crystals they guard are not just valuable rocks," she had told Jinwoo many times. "They are part of their living technology. We are destroying something amazing because we are too afraid to try to understand it." The ship suddenly shook hard. Warning lights began flashing red across the control panel. Jinwoo fought with the steering controls as the ship started spinning. "The main engine is failing," Jinwoo shouted. "I cannot control it anymore." Taemin felt scared as his mother grabbed him tight. Through the window he could see the planet getting bigger and bigger as they fell toward it. The mountain ranges looked like giant teeth ready to bite them. "We're going to crash in dragon territory," Jinwoo said. His voice was calm, but Taemin could hear the fear underneath. "Hold on tight." The ship hit the ground hard. Metal screamed and broke apart. Fire started everywhere. Taemin felt his head hit something and everything went dark. When he woke up, everything was quiet. His head hurt badly and he could taste blood. Around him, the ship was broken into pieces. Smoke and fire were everywhere. He tried to move, but his leg was trapped under a piece of metal. "Mama," he called out. "Papa," there was no answer. Near him, he could see his mother's still body. Her datapad was still in her hand, its screen cracked but still glowing with dragon symbols. His father was nowhere to be seen. Taemin started to cry. He was alone and hurt, and the fire was getting closer. He pulled and pulled until his leg came free. It hurt a lot, but he could still walk. He grabbed his mother's datapad and crawled out of the burning ship. Outside, the air was thin and cold. All around him were tall crystal formations that glowed with soft blue light. This was dragon territory. Every human child knew the stories. Dragons lived in these mountains, and they killed any human who came too close. For 3 days, Taemin hid in a small cave near the crash site. He had no food and only a little water from a broken pipe in the ship wreckage. The datapad still worked, and he looked at his mother's research to feel less alone. Even though he could not read most of it, the dragon symbols looked beautiful and complex. On the 4th day, he heard a sound like thunder, but the sky was clear. The sound came again, closer this time. Taman looked out of his cave and saw something that made his heart stop. A dragon was walking toward the crash site. It was bigger than anything Taman had ever imagined. Its scales were deep red and gold, and they seemed to glow from inside. Its eyes were like green fire. This was Vrathis the Ancient, though Taman did not know her name yet. She was older than the human settlements on this world. She had seen 1,000 generations of her kind live and die. Vrathis moved through the crystal formations like they were grass. Her massive head turned toward the burning wreckage of the human ship. Dragons had excellent noses, and she could smell the death and destruction. But there was something else. Something alive. She found Taman in his little cave. The boy was too scared and weak to run. He just sat there holding the datapad and looking up at the most dangerous creature on the planet. Vrathis could have killed him with one breath of her fire. Every dragon law said that humans were enemies. For hundreds of years, humans had invaded dragon territory. They killed dragons and stole their crystal gardens. They called dragons monsters and beasts. But as Vrathis looked down at this small human child, something made her pause. The boy was holding a device covered with dragon writing. Not the simple marks that human soldiers sometimes scratched on their weapons, but real dragon language, complex philosophical concepts and cultural observations. Using her mind powers, Vrathis gently took the datapad from Taman's hands. As she read through Heejin's research, her great eyes grew wide with surprise. This human female had spent years trying to truly understand dragon culture. She had translated dragon poetry and philosophy. She had written notes about dragon art and music. For the first time in centuries, a human had tried to see dragons as people instead of monsters. Vrathis looked back at the small boy. He was dying slowly from hunger and cold. In a few hours, he would join his parents in death. The ancient dragon faced a choice that would change everything. She could follow dragon law and let the child die. Or she could do something that had never been done before. Vrathis made her decision. She reached down with one massive claw and gently picked up Taman. The boy was too weak to be afraid anymore. As the great dragon carried him away from the crash site toward the hidden dragon sanctuary in the heart of Mount Korath, Taman fell asleep in her warm grasp. Behind them, the transport ship burned for 3 more days. When human search teams finally found the wreckage, they would report no survivors. The boy who would one day bridge 2 species and change the galaxy was already learning his first dragon words in the safety of caverns that no human had ever seen. The foundling's new life had begun. The human fleet arrived like a storm of metal and fire. Admiral Myung-ho stood on the bridge of his massive warship, watching the planet grow larger on his screens. Behind him, dozens of other ships followed in perfect formation. This was Operation Dragonbane, and it would be the end of dragon civilization forever. "Sir," called out his communications officer, "we are receiving the final target coordinates from ground forces. Commander Do-hyun confirms that Mount Korath is the primary dragon stronghold." Admiral Myung-ho smiled coldly. He had been planning this operation for 3 years. The dragons had valuable bioneural tissue that could revolutionize human computer systems. More importantly, the Admiral was dying from a rare disease, and he believed dragon technology could save his life. "Begin the first phase," he ordered. "I want all dragon territories mapped and surrounded. No creature escapes this planet alive." Far below on the planet's surface, Taman felt the arrival of the human fleet like a weight pressing down on his heart. He was now 16 years old, stronger and taller than before, but still caught between 2 worlds that seemed determined to destroy each other. "They have come in greater numbers than we expected," Korvac said as they watched the human ships through the crystal viewing screens in Mount Korath. "Our scouts report at least 50 vessels. This is not a mining operation. This is extermination." Vrathis called an emergency gathering of all the dragon elders. In the great council chamber, 30 of the oldest and wisest dragons discussed what to do. Some wanted to fight immediately, using their bioweapons to destroy the human ships before they could land. Others wanted to retreat deeper underground and wait for the humans to leave. "They will not leave," Taman said, speaking up from where he sat beside Vrathis. "I have been studying the human military signals. They call this Operation Dragonbane. They plan to kill every dragon and harvest your bioneural tissue for their own technology." The council chamber erupted in angry roars and flames. Dragons were peaceful by nature, but they would fight fiercely when threatened with extinction. "Then we must strike first," declared Thane, an ancient war dragon who had been sleeping for centuries. I will awaken my battle brothers, and we will burn their ships from the sky. Wait. Taemin stood up, his young voice carrying clearly through the chamber. There might be another way. Let me go to them first. Let me try to make them understand. Absolutely not, Korvac said firmly. They would kill you instantly. Maybe, Taemin replied. But I am human. I speak their language. If I can convince even some of them that you are intelligent beings worth protecting, it might stop the war. Vreetha studied the young man she had raised as her own child. And if they do not listen, then I will learn everything I can about their weapons and plans and bring that knowledge back to you. Taemin's eyes were determined. I am the bridge between our species. This is what I was meant to do. The next morning, Taemin put on clothes that Nyx had created using dragon biotechnology. They looked like normal human fabric but could protect him from energy weapons and help him heal from wounds. Hidden in his jacket was a small biocommunication device that would let him stay in contact with the dragons. He walked out of Mount Korath alone, carrying a fabricated story about being a crash survivor who had lived in caves for years. It was partially true, which made it easier to believe. The human patrol that found him was led by Lieutenant Boram, a young woman who seemed kinder than most soldiers. When Taemin stumbled out of the crystal formations, pretending to be weak and confused, she immediately ordered her medics to help him. What is your name? She asked as they gave him food and water. Taemin, he replied honestly. I was in a transport crash when I was little. I have been surviving alone ever since. Lieutenant Boram checked her records and found files about the crash 10 years ago, thanks to data that Dr. Yunseo had quietly inserted into the military database. Dr. Yunseo was a human scientist who had discovered some of Heejin's old research and was beginning to question the Federation's approach to dragon contact. You, have been living in dragon territory for 10 years, Boram said with amazement. How did you survive? I learned to hide from them, Taemin lied smoothly, and I learned to read their behavior. I know where they go and where they do not go. I could help you navigate their territory safely. This was exactly what the human forces needed. Commander Do-hyun was impressed when Boram brought Taemin to the command post. A native guide who understood dragon behavior could save many human lives during the operation. Tell me about the dragons, Commander Do-hyun said. Are they as dangerous as the reports claim? Taemin chose his words carefully. They are very intelligent. More than most people realize. They have complex social structures and they can communicate with each other across long distances. Good, Do-hyun replied. Intelligence means they can feel fear. Fear makes them easier to control. As the days passed, Taemin worked as a guide for human scouting parties while secretly learning about their weapons and plans. What he discovered horrified him. The humans had developed sonic weapons that could disrupt dragon bioneural systems, essentially lobotomizing them while keeping their bodies alive for harvesting. Even worse, he learned that Admiral Myung-ho was not just following military orders. The admiral was dying and believed that dragon bioneural tissue could extend his life indefinitely. He was willing to commit genocide to save himself. Taemin managed to send warnings back to Mount Korath through his hidden communication device, but as he spent more time with the human soldiers, he realized that many of them were not evil people. Lieutenant Boram genuinely cared about protecting civilians. Dr. Yunseo was actively working to sabotage the most horrible weapons. Even some of the other soldiers were beginning to question their orders. The problem was Admiral Myung-ho and his inner circle of officers who saw dragons as nothing more than valuable resources to be harvested. One night, as Taemin lay in his tent listening to the humans plan their final assault on Mount Korath, he made a difficult decision. He could not stop this war by himself, but maybe he could turn humans against each other, splitting their forces and giving the dragons a chance to survive. It was time to reveal his true nature to the right people and hope they would choose peace over genocide. The next morning would bring the beginning of the end, but also the first glimmer of hope for both species. The scouting mission went wrong from the very beginning. Lieutenant Boram led her squad deep into the Crystal Valleys, following Taemin's guidance toward what the humans thought was a dragon nesting area. But Taemin knew the truth. This area was not dangerous because of dragons. It was dangerous because the ground was unstable and could collapse without warning. Wait, Taemin called out as Sergeant Jae-hyun stepped toward a beautiful crystal formation that sparkled in the morning light. Do not go there, Why not? Jae-hyun demanded. Your job is to guide us, not give us orders. Taemin could hear the subtle vibrations in the crystal formations that warned of danger. This was something dragons had taught him to recognize. The crystals were singing a warning song that only trained ears could understand. The ground will collapse, Taemin said urgently. Those crystals are not stable. They will fall and crush anyone underneath. Jae-hyun laughed. How could you possibly know that? To prove his point, Jae-hyun threw a rock at the crystal formation. The impact caused a chain reaction. The entire structure began to crumble and fall toward the human soldiers. Without thinking, Taemin reacted the way Korvac had trained him. He reached out with his mind and spoke to the crystals in the dragon language, asking them to fall away from the humans instead of crushing them. To everyone's amazement, the crystals seemed to listen. They shifted direction as they fell, creating a safe path for the soldiers to escape. The squad stared at Taemin in shock and fear. What did you just do? Boram whispered. Taemin realized he had made a terrible mistake. There was no way to explain his abilities without revealing the truth about his life among the dragons. He started to say, but Jae-hyun was already reaching for his weapon. He is working with the dragons, Jae-hyun shouted. He is a traitor. No, Boram said firmly. He just saved our lives, but the damage was done. When they returned to base, Jae-hyun reported what had happened to Commander Do-hyun. The commander immediately became suspicious of their native guide, who seemed to know too much about dragon territory and behavior. That night, Do-hyun confronted Taemin privately in the command tent. I have been thinking about you, Do-hyun said, circling around Taemin like a predator. A boy who survived 10 years alone in dragon territory. A boy who knows exactly where dragons will be and where they will not be. A boy who can predict crystal collapses like he has some kind of special knowledge. I learned by watching, Taemin replied, trying to stay calm. 10 years is a long time to observe and learn. Or, Do-hyun continued, you are not what you claim to be. Maybe you were not hiding from dragons all these years. Maybe you were living with them. Before Taemin could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the human base. Dr. Yoon Seo rushed into the command tent with a panicked expression. Commander, she said breathlessly, we are detecting massive bioenergy signatures moving toward our position. The dragons are attacking. Do-hyun smiled coldly. Perfect timing. Now we will see what our young guide really is. Outside the base, the ground shook as dozens of dragons approached. But this was not an attack. This was a rescue mission. Korvac had sensed through Taemin's biocommunicator that the boy was in danger, and he had convinced Vrathus to send a force to extract him. The dragons moved with incredible speed and coordination. They did not use fire or violence. Instead, they used their biotechnology to create confusion. Strange spores filled the air that made human sensors malfunction. Living vines grew from the ground and disabled vehicles without hurting anyone inside. In the chaos, Taemin saw his chance to escape. He ran toward the edge of the base where he could see Nyx waiting for him, her silver scales gleaming in the darkness. Stop! Do-hyun shouted behind him. Traitor. I knew it. Weapons fire erupted around Taemin as he ran. Energy bolts sizzled past his head and burned into the ground at his feet. Behind him, he could hear Do-hyun ordering his soldiers to capture the dragon collaborator alive. Taemin reached Nyx and climbed onto her back. As they took off into the night sky, he looked down and saw the human base in chaos. Some soldiers were fighting the dragon rescue force, but others, including Lieutenant Boram, had lowered their weapons and were watching in amazement as the dragons carefully avoided hurting anyone. Did you learn what we needed to know? Nyx asked as they flew toward Mount Korath. Yes, Taemin replied grimly, and it is worse than we feared. Admiral Myung-ho has sonic weapons that can lobotomize dragons while keeping them alive. He wants to harvest bio-neural tissue for his own use. The attack begins tomorrow. When they reached the dragon sanctuary, Taemin found the council of elders already assembled. Vrathus listened carefully as he reported everything he had learned about human weapons and tactics. They have over 3,000 soldiers, Taemin explained. Advanced energy weapons, armored vehicles, and aircraft that can attack from long range. But their greatest advantage is the sonic disruptors. These weapons can shut down dragon nervous systems from a distance. Thane, the ancient war dragon, spread his massive wings. Then we must strike before they can use these weapons. I will lead our fastest flyers against their ships. That will not work, Taemin said. They have shield generators and defensive systems. A direct attack will only result in dragon deaths. Then what do you suggest, young Bridgewalker? Vrathis asked. She used the dragon term for someone who could move between two worlds. Taemin had been thinking about this during the flight home. We need to divide their forces. Some humans are already questioning this mission. Dr. Yunseo and Lieutenant Bo-Ram both seem willing to listen to reason. If we can convince enough humans to switch sides, Admiral Myung-ho will not have enough soldiers to complete his genocide. And how do we convince humans to betray their own species? Korvac asked. By showing them the truth, Taemin replied. By proving that dragons are intelligent, peaceful beings who deserve to live. And by exposing Admiral Myung-ho's real motives. It was a dangerous plan that would require precise timing and incredible luck. But as the dragons prepared for the battle that would decide the fate of both species, Taemin felt something growing inside him. It was not just courage or determination. His years of living between human and dragon cultures had changed him on a fundamental level. The biotechnology that surrounded him every day had slowly integrated with his human biology. He was becoming something new, something that had never existed before, a true bridge between species, enhanced by both human adaptability and dragon wisdom. Tomorrow would test whether that bridge was strong enough to prevent the destruction of two civilizations. The war began at dawn with the sound of human ships descending from orbit. Admiral Myung-ho had decided to accelerate his timeline after learning about the dragon rescue of their spy. Operation Dragonbane would begin immediately, before the dragons could prepare better defenses. Taemin stood on the highest platform of Mount Korath, watching the human fleet spread across the sky like a dark cloud. Around him, dragons prepared for battle in ways their species had not needed for thousands of years. The ancient war dragon Thane was awakening others who had been sleeping in the deep caves. Their roars echoed through the mountain as they stretched wings that had not flown for centuries. Are you ready for what comes next? Vrathis asked, landing beside Taemin on the platform. Taemin nodded, though inside he felt afraid. In the past day, something strange had been happening to his body. The years of living with dragon biotechnology had changed him more than anyone realized. He could feel the life energy flowing through Mount Korath's living systems. He could sense the emotional states of dragons across the mountain. Most incredibly, he was beginning to connect with multiple dragon minds at the same time. I can feel them all, he said quietly. Every dragon in the sanctuary. Their thoughts and fears and hopes. Is this normal? No, young one, Vrathis replied. What is happening to you has never happened before. You are becoming something new. A bridge not just between species, but between individual minds. Before she could explain further, warning signals began pulsing through the crystal networks. Human ground forces were approaching Mount Korath from 3 directions simultaneously. This was not just an attack on their sanctuary. The humans were striking dragon settlements across the entire planet at the same time. It is a galaxy-wide extermination campaign, Taemin realized with horror. They are not just targeting this world. They plan to wipe out every dragon in known space. Through his expanding mental connection, Taemin could suddenly sense dragon communities on distant planets. He felt their fear as human fleets appeared in their skies. He felt their confusion as sonic weapons began disrupting their neural systems. The scale of the genocide was beyond anything he had imagined. We need help, he said urgently, not just for our sanctuary but for all dragons everywhere. That was when Captain So-young made her choice. So-young had been Admiral Myung-ho's most trusted officer, but she had been listening to Dr. Yunseo's research about dragon intelligence and culture. When the Admiral ordered her to deploy chemical weapons against dragon nurseries where young dragons were kept, she could not follow the command. Sir, those are civilian targets, she said on the bridge of the Admiral's flagship. There are no military threats in those areas. Dragons are never civilians, Admiral Myung-ho replied coldly. They are resources to be harvested. Deploy the weapons immediately. So-young looked around the bridge at her fellow officers. Some of them looked uncomfortable with the order, but none spoke up. She realized that if she did not act, thousands of innocent dragon children would die. I refuse, she said clearly. This is genocide, not military action. Admiral Myung-ho turned to face her, his eyes filled with rage. You are relieved of duty. Security. Arrest the captain for treason. But when the security guards moved toward So-young, half of the bridge crew stood up with her. Lieutenant Kibyom from the engineering section, Commander Park from communications, Dr. Yunseo from the science division. even some of the younger officers who had been quietly questioning their orders. "We stand with Captain So-young," Kibyom declared. "This operation has gone beyond any reasonable military objective. Admiral Myung-ho realized he was facing a mutiny, but he was too committed to his plan to stop now." "Fine, you are all traitors to humanity. Guards, arrest them all." The loyal security forces moved to obey, but the bridge erupted in chaos as officers chose sides. In the confusion, Dr. Yunseo managed to send a transmission to the planet's surface before the Admiral's loyalists could stop her. "This is Dr. Yunseo calling Mount Korath," she broadcasted. "We are human officers who oppose this genocide. If you can receive this message, please respond. We want to help." Deep in Mount Korath, Taemin heard the transmission through the Dragon communication networks. This was the opportunity he had been hoping for. Some humans were willing to fight against their own species to protect dragons. "Korvac," he called to his dragon mentor, "I need you to help me do something that has never been done before. I need to speak directly to those humans using dragon biocommunication technology." Korvac was puzzled. That should not be possible. Dragon biosystems are not compatible with human technology. "They are compatible with me," Taemin replied, "and I think I can create a bridge between them." Under incredible stress and with his enhanced abilities awakening, Taemin did something extraordinary. He connected his consciousness directly with the mountain's biocommunication network and used his human understanding of electronic systems to translate the signal into something human radios could receive. "Dr. Yunseo," his voice came through the speakers on the human ships. "This is Taemin. I am the bridge between our species. If you truly want to help, then we must work together to stop Admiral Myung-ho." On the flagship, the mutinous officers stared in amazement at the radio. "Who are you?" Dr. Yunseo asked. "How are you communicating with us?" "I am human, but I was raised by dragons," Taemin replied. "I know both of our species, and I know that this war will destroy something beautiful and irreplaceable. Admiral Myung-ho is not doing this for humanity. He is doing it to save his own life." Captain So-young grabbed the radio. "What do you mean?" "The Admiral is dying," Taemin explained. "He believes dragon bioneural tissue can cure him. He is willing to commit genocide for personal immortality." This revelation shocked even the officers who had remained loyal to the Admiral. They had thought they were following military orders to secure valuable resources for humanity. They had not known their commander was pursuing a personal agenda. As the truth spread through the human fleet, more officers began to question their mission. Some ships stopped their attacks on dragon settlements. Others openly refused to deploy their sonic weapons. But Admiral Myung-ho still controlled the largest ships and the most devastating weapons. When he realized he was losing control of his fleet, he decided to complete the mission himself. "If my own officers will not follow orders," he snarled, "then I will personally lead the final assault on Mount Korath." The Admiral put on a special powered combat suit designed specifically for fighting dragons. It was armored against fire and claws, equipped with sonic disruptors, and enhanced with strength amplifiers that would let him match a dragon's physical power. As his personal shuttle descended toward Mount Korath, Admiral Myung-ho prepared for the battle that would either give him immortality or destroy him completely. On the crystal platform, Taemin felt the Admiral approaching. His enhanced senses could detect the hatred and desperation radiating from the human commander. This would be more than a battle between species. This would be a fight between two very different ideas about what it meant to be alive. The final confrontation was about to begin. Admiral Myung-ho crashed through the crystal walls of Mount Korath like a meteor of metal and hatred. His powered combat suit sparkled with energy shields and weapon systems. Behind his helmet visor, his dying face was twisted with desperate determination. "Where is the boy?" he shouted, his voice amplified by external speakers. "Where is the traitor who turned my own officers against me?" Taemin stepped out from behind a crystal formation to face the Admiral. At 17 years old, he was tall and strong, but he looked fragile compared to the armored giants stomping toward him. Around them, the dragon sanctuary's living walls pulsed with nervous energy. "I am here," Taemin said calmly, "and I am not a traitor. I am trying to save both our species from unnecessary destruction." "Unnecessary." Admiral Myung-ho laughed bitterly. "These creatures have technology that could revolutionize human civilization. Their bioneural tissue could cure every disease, extend every life. You would deny that gift to humanity because of sentimental attachment to monsters. They are not monsters, Taman replied. They are people. Intelligent, feeling beings with their own culture and dreams and families. You would commit genocide to save one life. Your own? The Admiral raised his arm and fired a sonic disruptor at Taemin. The weapon was designed to shut down dragon nervous systems. But Taemin was no ordinary human anymore. His years among dragon biotechnology had changed him on a cellular level. Instead of being paralyzed, he felt the sonic waves pass through him harmlessly. Impossible, Admiral Myung-ho snarled. You are still human. These weapons should affect you. I am human, Taemin agreed, but I am also something new. As they fought, something remarkable began happening throughout the sanctuary. Taemin's enhanced connection with the dragon biosystems allowed him to coordinate with every dragon in Mount Korath simultaneously. When the Admiral attacked with energy weapons, Taemin guided crystal formations to absorb and redirect the blasts. When the Admiral tried to use brute force, Taemin called upon dragon knowledge of leverage and momentum to turn the Admiral's own strength against him, but the most incredible change was happening to Taemin himself. Under the extreme stress of battle, his hybrid nature fully awakened. His human adaptability combined with dragon bioenhancement began transforming his body. His skin took on a subtle scaled pattern that could deflect energy weapons. His eyes began glowing with the same inner light as dragon eyes. His reflexes became faster than any normal human could achieve. He was becoming the bridge between species in a literal sense. What are you becoming? Admiral Myung-ho demanded as his weapons continued to fail against Taemin's transforming body. I am becoming what both our species could be if we chose cooperation over conquest, Taemin replied. I am becoming proof that different forms of life can enhance each other instead of destroying each other. The battle raged through the crystal chambers of Mount Korath. Admiral Myung-ho's combat suit was incredibly powerful, but it was designed by humans who saw dragons as simple beasts. It was not prepared to face someone who understood both human technology and dragon biosystems. Gradually, Taemin began to gain the advantage. Every attack the Admiral made taught Taemin more about the limits of human military technology. Every defense Taemin used showed him new possibilities for combining human engineering with dragon biotechnology. Finally, Admiral Myung-ho made a desperate mistake. He activated all of his suit's weapon systems at once, trying to overwhelm Taemin with massive firepower. But the energy drain was too much for his power systems. The suit began shutting down, leaving the Admiral vulnerable. Taemin could have killed him easily. Instead, he reached out with his enhanced abilities and gently shut down the Admiral's life support systems, rendering him unconscious but alive. Why? Admiral Myung-ho whispered as he collapsed. Why let me live when I would have destroyed everything you care about? Because proving that dragons are worth saving means nothing if I become as cruel as those who would destroy them, Taemin replied. Every life has value, even yours. As news of Admiral Myung-ho's defeat spread through the human fleet, the remaining fighting quickly ended. Captain So-young took command of the Loyalist forces and ordered all ships to cease fire. Dr. Yoon Seo began coordinating with dragon biotechnicians to treat the injured on both sides, but the victory had come at a terrible cost. Hundreds of dragons had been killed or injured by sonic weapons. Several dragon settlements on other planets had been completely destroyed before the mutiny could stop the attacks. The trust between species that might have developed naturally over decades had been shattered by violence. Taemin knew that ending the war was only the first step. Building peace would be much harder. Over the following months, he worked tirelessly to establish the foundations of a new relationship between humans and dragons. His unique nature allowed him to serve as translator, mediator, and living proof that cooperation was possible. Commander Do-hyun, who had once hunted Taemin as a traitor, became one of the strongest advocates for human-dragon cooperation after seeing the advanced medical technology dragons used to heal both species wounded. Lieutenant Boram established the first integrated training program where human and dragon young people could learn together. Dr. Yoon Seo worked with dragon biotechnicians to develop new medical treatments that combined the best of both species' knowledge. These treatments saved Admiral Myung-ho's life, though he spent the rest of his days in a rehabilitation facility, coming to terms with the magnitude of his crimes. Most remarkably, The combination of human engineering and dragon biotechnology began producing innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. Living starships that could heal themselves and adapt to new environments. Bio-neural computers that surpassed traditional artificial intelligence. Medical techniques that could cure diseases thought to be incurable. Captain So-Young became the first human to serve aboard a Dragon bioship, learning to work with technology that was more alive than constructed. Kibium helped design hybrid communication systems that allowed real-time translation between human electronic signals and Dragon. Biocommunication Networks (NICs) became the first Dragon to study human technology formally, spending months learning about metals and circuits and electromagnetic fields. Her insights into how biological and mechanical systems could work together opened entirely new fields of science. As Taman watched the first mixed settlements grow around Mount Korath, he often thought about his birth parents and their dream of peaceful contact between species. Heejin and Jinwoo had died believing that understanding was possible. Their son had lived to make that understanding a reality. On the first anniversary of the end of the Dragon Wars, Tai-Min stood before a joint council of human and dragon representatives. Behind him, human children played with young dragons in gardens of living crystal. Above them, hybrid biomechanical ships prepared to carry mixed crews to distant worlds. "We have learned that the galaxy is not big enough for species that see each other as enemies," he said to the assembled council. "But it is exactly the right size for species that see each other as partners." As he spoke, Taemin's enhanced senses could feel the hope and determination radiating from both humans and dragons in the audience. The boy who had been lost between worlds had found his purpose in bringing those worlds together. The age of cooperation between species had begun, and it would transform the galaxy in ways that neither humans nor dragons could have imagined alone. The bridge between worlds was strong, and it would carry both species toward a future brighter than either could have built in isolation. Tai-Min had kept his promise to save both species. Now began the even greater adventure of seeing what they could accomplish together.